I think his time at Newcastle is done to do any
Incredible
work.
business.
It is incredible business. It's not. Look it up.
I've got my laptop. Never question me again.
Do jump in the comments and let me know what you guys think. Do you want keep, sell, loan? Let me know.
Yeah. Geordie Journos, joined by Liam Kennedy and myself, Dominic Skur. Back in
the yard.
backyard, yeah.
This is our yard.
The Geordie Journos yard. So yeah, as promised, we've finally got round to it. We've been promising it for weeks, haven't we?
Yeah.
Newcastle United 2024-25 season. Keep, sell, loan out of the current squad as it stands. Obviously, we won't include a player like Lloyd Kelly, who's going to join at the end of the month, or a player even like Lewis Hall, even though you probably thought he should have been loaned out.
I would have 4 months ago, whereas those end of season performances are incredible.
So yeah, we'll get right into it, unless you want to do the T's and C's. 4 Rivers, of course.
Yeah. 4 Rivers Financial Planning. It'll be in... I never know which corner it's going to be.
It's flipped. It's flipped.
It'll be in one of the corners.
Above one of our heads, probably Liam's.
But if you need the T's and C's, do look in the bio below. You'll see that 4 Rivers Financial Planning, who are kind sponsors of all long-form Geordie Journos videos. They provide bespoke investment and pension advice. So if you do require any of that, do go into the bio, click on the link, get in touch with them. They'll be able to help you out. And obviously, if you do get in touch with them, quote Geordie Journos as the place that you've seen them advertised. Right, keep, sell, loan. I'm quite excited by this one.
Yeah, it could be quite a long one, could be quite a short one.
We'll see how it goes.
There's obviously a lot of players in the Newcastle squad. A lot gets made about them as well. We obviously know a few players are being released. We have good information that some players are going to leave as well. But we'll start at the back, right at the back.
Yeah.
In goal, obviously Loris Karius, he's one of the players who will be released. Newcastle still heading into the new season with 3 contracted goalkeepers in Nick Pope, Martin Dubravka and Mark Gillespie. There's also talk of James Trafford potentially joining, though that deal has failed to progress since we last talked about it. So, goalkeepers, what is your view? Keep, sell, loan on those 3.
So I think we've got to kind of treat it as it is, rather than thinking about what theory could progress. We've talked about whether a number 1 needs brought in, which would then create problems on whether you would keep or sell Nick Pope. Or I think the route they look like they're going to go down is to sign somebody who will look to challenge Nick Pope over the next 18 to 24 months. Yeah. So that fits the James Trafford mould. If we use that as what's probably going to happen as we understand it, then it's got to be Nick Pope keep. I think he's got a good few years, providing his injuries all right. He's got a good few years in him at the top level. He's a top goalkeeper. I know Jordan's a big fan, and he mentioned the last time we sat here about the transformative effect he had, and it does often get overlooked how big an upgrade that was on Martin Dubravka. Yeah. We didn't think it at the time, but it soon proved quite obvious that he's a big guy, fills the goal out. He's not tremendous with passing the ball with his feet, by the way, but he's got long levers, really long limbs, where he makes great saves with his feet.
He makes saves look easy.
He does, because of his size, and he's a real natural shot stopper. He's a goalkeeper. I think if he'd been around 20 years ago or 30 years ago, he probably would have been classed as one of the best in the world, because he does goalkeeping really well. He's excellent at that stuff. It's the football side of things which is becoming more and more prominent in the game. You need a footballer. It's weird how it ever took football that long to realise that as well.
Yeah.
That even when you're just kicking a ball about with your mates, you need to be able to pass the ball around.
I guess back passing only came in the last 30 years or so.
Did it?
Yeah, it was like the 90s, wasn't it? Back pass. So I guess
it wasn't the 90s, man. Was it?
I'm sure it was.
No, it was before that. Surely.
Back passing.
Yeah. Look it up.
I've got my laptop. Because my point would be, you wouldn't really need a goalkeeper if a keeper could just pick it up and kick it out his hands every time.
Yeah, you're correct. But I think
back pass rule.
Go on, you find that out. Nick Pope for me is an absolute keep.
Our lack of knowledge is on.
It is. Come on. It's the Geordie Journos.
1992. Ladies,
is it?
so
Okay.
Do never question me again.
So the back pass rule only came in during my lifetime. I find that incredible.
Do you know why I know this? Because I was watching highlights of Euro 92. Denmark won the European Championships from being absolute back pass. Peter Schmeichel, like
they did, just passing it back to him.
Yes.
Right. So yeah. Well, if you'd put Nick Pope in that era, he'd be incredible.
Yeah.
I think the rest of them, Gillespie's a stay. He's the new cheerleader, and we've talked about the Matt Ritchies and the Paul Dummets, and Gillespie's the cheerleader this year. Be interesting to see whether they see him as a 3, or whether he goes as a 4. I think it depends on how much they get to spend and if they can get the players they want. I think in an ideal he'd probably be a. I don't know. Do you need 4 keepers? Do teams have 4 keepers?
Well, Newcastle probably needed them at some point, particularly when you had like the Carabao Cup final last year, for example. But that was a very bizarre situation.
I suppose the thing about it is he never saw a minute's play, did he?
Yeah.
So you would argue, do you really need
a bench a few times? But that's the limit.
That was it. So you could put a kid on the bench if you absolutely had to, and that's what's happened in the past. And of course, you can always sign keepers if you need to.
Yeah.
If it becomes a disaster situation and they're all injured. So I would say it's a keep for those two. Martin Dubravka, I think, wants to be a number 1 somewhere. He's number 1 with his country in the Euros, and I think it's only fair. I think his time at Newcastle is done, in my opinion. And I think he wasn't the reason for not finishing in Europe last season. But I think it's okay to say that, as well as saying I think if Nick Pope would have played the full season, they would have made Europe.
Yeah.
So I don't think Dubravka's to blame for that, but I do believe that Pope would have been better.
Yeah, I think a point raised by my dad actually. Newcastle picked up 29 points with Nick Pope in goal last season, and picked up 31 with Martin Dubravka.
Oh,
so
really?
2 points difference. Martin Dubravka played twice as many games.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't. It's right. It's spot on.
It's statistically correct. Whether Martin Dubravka is the reason behind that is up for debate. Very
but
much.
I think it's a lot of thing about that is trust. So do teams, does the backline trust the man behind them? I think they do absolutely trust Nick Pope. I don't think Martin Dubravka's a bad goalkeeper by Premier League standards, but I wouldn't say he's anywhere near the top end of the table either.
No.
So you just lose that element of trust that maybe did make a difference in some of those games.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Martin Dubravka's spoken quite openly about wanting to be a number 1. I think his comments came across, probably written down at least, quite harshly when he was interviewed by the Slovakian press, and he was asked about his future at Newcastle, and he went simply, I don't care anymore. He had to focus on Slovakia. I've done my part. If the club still want to replace me, that's on them, which I think is fair.
Do you agree
enough.
they should?
I think they should, yeah. I think you could probably he's got a year left on his contract. Are you going to offer him a new deal? He's 35 years old. Cash in while you can. It won't be a lot of money, but I think Martin Dubravka is one of those players that we've talked about, like Miguel Almiron, Jacob Murphy to a good degree. Good players, maybe in previous seasons, but in terms of progressing the club, developing further, he is a good number 2, but he doesn't want to be a number 2, so I think it's the best option for all parties to sell Martin Dubravka this summer.
Yeah, I agree.
So, sell Martin Dubravka, keep Mark Gillespie, keep Nick Pope, and then in an ideal world you'd sign a number 2 as well.
A number 2. On that, I'm not 100% certain that James Trafford is ready. I think he had a really tough time last season, and I think you've got to look at worst case scenarios. What happens if Nick Pope's out for 6 months again next season?
Yeah.
Then you're actually relying upon James Trafford, who struggled.
Who is worse than Martin Dubravka potentially?
In terms of, because of that experience, yeah. If you can hear anybody sniffling and shuffling around, it's Dom's.
I promised she wouldn't be an issue, but
it's Dom's little dog, Jessie. She's trying to get involved in the. Here we are. Are you coming in? Is this Jordan's replacement?
Mm-hmm. You alright, Jordan?
She just wants to be involved. Yeah, she just wants to be in with her lads.
Shocking, man.
There she is.
Anyway, moving on. Defence.
That's not her, by the way.
No.
That's somebody else.
Do you want to start centre backs?
What do you think?
Need to get her going. Centre backs. Obviously, there's Jamal Lascelles, Sven Botman, Fabian Schär. Emil Kraft can technically play there. Dan Burn, Alex Murphy.
So I think Murphy should go out on loan. I think it'd be really good for his development to get some time elsewhere, and then I think we'll really see whether he's a player or not. You don't agree with that one, no?
No, she didn't like that.
I think Jesse wants to keep Alex Murphy around. Dan Burn, experience. You can't lose that experience out of the squad. I think he's a quality player. He stays. Emil Kraft, I would have got rid of long ago. I'm not an Emil Kraft fan in any way, shape or form. That's no criticism. Look, he's a player who did a job at a time in Newcastle United's history, but not now for me. I think progression means that he should be moved on. Just looking at the list there, and the other three for me, this might be controversial. I think Jamal Lascelles is a leader again. He's a skip. Of course, he's injured, so you wouldn't get rid of him anyway. I think he might only have a little bit of time left on his contract, but I think he's a good player to have around the place. And Fabian Schär and Sven Botman pick themselves, so they are the first choice. And I actually think any centre half who's signed this summer would have a hard job getting either of those two out of the team. Yeah. Such as their level of quality. Although Fabian Schär seems to be the person that everyone always seems to want to replace. For me, he's almost irreplaceable.
Age and contract length, isn't it?
It is.
He's 33, is it now?
I think everyone keeps preempting that he's going to drop off a cliff because of his age, but he's playing better football now than he has in his whole Newcastle United career. So I think write him off at your peril would be my shout on Fabian Schär.
Yeah, I agree with Alex Murphy. I think he needs a loan. He's looked good at times in fleeting sort of spells, but I thought maybe in Australia where we got a proper look at him starting a game in a difficult setting against the A-League side with young teammates around him was exposed really, and I think he would do with a full season of senior men's football. But what I would say, just playing devil's advocate slightly, Newcastle in a situation where they need to raise a bit of money. Sven Botman, if he's fit, if a club came in and offered, I don't know, 50, 60 million for him, would that tempt you as Newcastle United?
Possibly, yeah. I don't think there's many untouchables in the squad, really. I think everybody, as mentioned...
A year ago you probably would have said Sven Botman is an untouchable.
I would have, and I still think he's a very, very good player, but I don't think he's the absolute answer to every question. I think for a young lad, his lack of pace is quite a big issue at times. I don't think it doesn't make him the perfect centre half. Look, there's been plenty of centre halves out there who don't have pace, who've made fantastic careers. And one thing he does do for the player that he is really read it well. He's very good in his one-on-ones with strikers or wingers where he blocks things and he reads balls through, reads balls over the top. He's pretty good, and I think it's maybe coloured a little bit by his poor form last season, but the lad was clearly so injured. He was never fit, was he? But no, I think if somebody did come in with a big offer and you doubled your money on him, I wouldn't be against it, because I don't think centre half's a position where players are. I just called probably Fabian Schär irreplaceable, but he's got such a unique skill set that I don't think there's many players like him. I do think there's probably players like Sven Botman out there.
Yeah,
I think Holland have probably insisted in themselves the fact he doesn't really get a look in the international team.
Yeah.
Even before injury, probably says that they've got a couple. I mean, Van der Ven was picked out of nowhere, and players like that.
Yeah.
It's a little sun trap in here, eh? Aye, I'm absolutely buzzing. I'm sweating. I'll get my sunglasses on. So yeah, I don't know. I would think I think Botman would be one that you could potentially let go. Yeah. It wouldn't be top of my list, like.
No, not at all. I was just trying to play devil's advocate. I think there would have been maybe a conversation to be had there if he was fit and a significant bid came in this summer. But I think an interesting position is the full-back positions. Yeah. We've touched on Emil Kraft. I agree, I would sell him this summer if you possibly could, although he has just recently signed a 1-year extension, which I'm sure you were thrilled about.
I mean, it was just a squad covering exercise, wasn't it? But I don't want this to turn into some kind of Emil Kraft bashing video, but it just isn't of the level required, in my opinion, at right back or centre half. So why? I feel like the
fourth choice or third choice, then it's.
Has Emil Kraft become the new Paul Dummett in this squad? That's probably what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. But the other full-backs, you've got Kieran Trippier, Jamal Lewis, Matt Targett, Lewis Hall we've touched on, we'll keep him, Tino Livramento, Harrison Ashby. A lot of them there are question marks over.
I don't think it's a very good bunch. I think a lot of people talk about the strengths in fullback, but I don't actually think it's a great bunch. I do think that there's a need for a small strengthening. Lewis Hall, excellent. They've got left back cover, but when you actually just lay it out with actual fullbacks, you'd bin Matt Targett in a heartbeat. Really, the wages that he's on, and the amount of games that he's played, but how do you get rid of a player on those wages who isn't playing games? You're almost going begging bowl to the likes of Southampton, where he's played before, where he's from, and where he probably would have signed for if he could have, or teams down south. That's essentially what you're doing. What was the rest of the list? Harrison Ashby hasn't shown anything close to being ready for Premier League football, in my opinion. Went on loan at Swansea and didn't actually play a lot of games. Had his own injury problems, of course. So I think that's one where if you can get any money for him, you'd probably cash in rather than another loan, in my opinion. Jamal Lewis, look, they're going to have to give him away. He was all right when he played, but
I remember the initial sort of spell.
When Howe first came in,
he was actually quite good.
Did he not get injured at Anfield?
He
got injured at Anfield, and he was just starting to come into his own a little bit. The one issue I've always had with Jamal Lewis, and I think he's a good size, I think he's decent-ish going forward, is he lacks real defensive sense. I don't think he's a very good defensive left back. He just lacks that little bit of awareness, and I think that's always going to kind of hold him back from being a Premier League player, in my opinion. So I think you cut your losses with Jamal Lewis. You try your best to get rid of Target. I've mentioned Kraft. Livramento is obviously the boy, isn't he? Like if he can get over these ankle injuries, I want to see a good run of games from him. And the one that the elephant in the room is I haven't addressed it, Kieran Trippier. Obviously, our information at the Geordie Journos has been that it really is a lot of the in the nose and all this crap you see online. There is some truth in what they say with regards to Kieran Trippier, and I would always be careful. I mentioned this on other channels in the past, and I mentioned this on social media quite a bit. I see so much hearsay become fact online. Just be careful of the accounts that you trust. Like, we're not going to sit here and profess to know all information. That, I'll be honest with you in that fact. But we won't say things without firm fact behind it. And if we say something, it's true. So that isn't the case with a lot of people online. I've even seen, and I won't name names, I've seen posts in the last couple of days with absolute lies in them. Checked out by ourselves that they're just not untruths. So just be careful that, and these are big accounts, by the way, big accounts with big followings, and I find on social media, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I feel it's an important, I do actually think it's an important point.
You're beating around the bush a little bit though. People be like, which ones?
No, I'm not going to say, because I think that's really unfair. I just wish people would be better, but I think it's more on the viewer themselves.
Social media though, isn't
Just be really careful. Just be careful about the sources that you trust. I'm not saying we're going to be the best sources on the planet. We give you our opinions mixed in with some fact. We're at the core face. We speak to the people who matter constantly, and we'll always feed that information back to you. But just be careful of people with big followings who are pushing for interactions online and push false information on a regular basis. So just do be careful. That's all I would say. Kieran Trippier, there is some fact in what some of these in the knows have been saying, and it's Jordan's information. Actually, Jordan Cronin, who's not here with us today.
Is he up there?
Is he up there? Anyone who watched the last video will get that one. It's his information, and it's been around a long time. This Saudi Arabia link is not something new. It's something that goes back. I can remember talking to Jordan privately with it about it, and he won't mind us saying this, as far back I think as December. And that was before any of this Bayern Munich stuff came up. So I think that's one that could happen, feels like it could happen, but I'm not certain it will, because there's other factors at play here. It's a big decision as a plane flies over. Bit of a retro one, that.
Even in a private area, we still get dogs,
honestly,
planes. Probably rain in a second.
we can't get away from it. Right, we're only at fullbacks and we're going 20 minutes in. Kieran Trippier, big possibility that he leaves. It's not a guarantee that he does, by the way, because there are other factors at play. The guy's still playing Premier League football at a club he loves playing for. He's still getting a really good wage, even though he get a much better wage in Saudi Arabia, and he's still playing for a manager that he really trusts and wanted to play for, knowing that he approached the football club to play for Newcastle United, not the other way around. So this is a player who wants to be here. It's just he's got a chance to go somewhere to make even more life-changing money than what he already has.
Yeah, I agree, but I'd keep Kieran Trippier.
I say keep. Because I think his experience is another one with the Dan Burns situation.
He's a good player. He's still one of the better right backs around, even though he
is.
has shown his age at time. He showed for England, I thought, the other day, and we discussed this off camera, that he's shown at left back, even though the fact he's right footed probably limits England further forward in an attacking sense, but defensively he's still a very competent, very good player.
And Jesse's back. Right,
So-
into midfield.
So yes, the midfield's interesting because I mean I want to disagree with you on the defence, but you just can't because
I think we're probably. This is probably going to be. I'm really apologies if it's boring because we'll probably have similar views on most of this. There might be
that's
some.
the issue. I'll try and be different.
No,
with you
don't
here.
contrive. That's
No. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I think maybe midfield is where we would differ. So midfielders, we'll start with the central midfielders: Joe Linton, Sandro Tonali, Joe Willock, Elliot Anderson, Sean Longstaff, Bruno, Joe White, Lewis Miley,
That's it.
and that's it.
Joe Linton's just signed a new deal, so I think we can probably both take that one off pretty easily. You keep him.
Keep him.
I think Joe Linton's at his level. I think we talked. Did we talk about this? We talked
Last
about
night.
it last night, didn't we? We were out playing football ourselves and watched the last half hour of the Scotland game, didn't we?
Yeah. Fabian Schär was unlucky, wasn't
Well, it was good to see his goal was the own goal was chalked
Yes.
off as Scott McTominay. I was quite pleased to see that. So we're talking last night about Joe Linton. For me, he's at the level. I think he's good for Newcastle United. I think he would have problems if he stepped up any higher. The money that he's on is fair, but it's a value that Newcastle United value on that rather than I think the level of the player. And this is from a person I'm a big fan of Joe Linton, but I do see his limitations as well as seeing him as a big part of what Newcastle United do. His physicality, his up and down, his commitment, his drive, everything about him's a lot. There's a lot to like. So I think we'll probably both keep on that one, so we can tick that one off. Bruno Guimaraes isn't a debate for me, so I'm not even going to go into detail. I just want him to stay, and if he said today that he'll stay forever, I would say, brilliant, mate. Just we'll give you what you want. I think he's levels above any other midfielder that I've ever seen in black and white, and I think it's hard to argue otherwise. Do jump in the comments if you want to argue otherwise, and give this video a like if you're enjoying this. If you're not, just don't dislike it, but give it a like. Elliot Anderson, Sean Longstaff, Joe White, Lewis Miley. I'm going to group the Geordies all in together.
Academy boys.
The Academy boys. I think Sean Longstaff still has a valuable place in the team, and that might be a controversial one. You might not like it out there, but I do. I'm a decent fan of Sean Longstaff. Again, a player who massively has his limitations, but I think can do a job, and as a squad player who wants to be here and wants to stay, I think he's a good fella. I think it's going to be a big season for Lewis Miley. I was just thinking about what he's going to be like when he comes back and what Newcastle United's first choice midfield on the first day of the season might look like, and I'd be interested to see if Miley manages to edge Longstaff out of that team. I think there's a fair chance he does, because he's had that rest, and hopefully he comes back from injury nice and strong. Goes over to Germany and does well, and then goes over to Japan where you guys, Geordie, Journos, Dom and Jordan will both be in Japan, so follow it all there. But I think it's Joe White's a difficult one.
Look, Joe White is in a difficult situation because next season he's 22.
I think a problem with Joe White, it's a fear I would have if I was him, is if he goes out on loan he might never come back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those where he's at that age where if he goes away.
But in a world where you have to manage your 25-man Premier League squad, is naming Joe White as a player, because he'd be a senior player.
Is he into the senior one?
Yes, because he'd be 22 next season.
Can we just go over this one now before you talk about that?
Yes.
You've obviously done your research now, as I expect of you.
Yes.
He's the man for the stats. How many players do tick over? Because I know there was some close. Does Elliot Anderson
It's Joe
tick
White,
over?
Elliot Anderson. It's anyone who's 21. Harrison Ashby, for example, would.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, I think he would have.
Livramento? How old is he?
Livramento would as well, because he turns 22.
So next season, the squad was almost down to about 23, wasn't it? Then you're going to be adding on Livramento and Anderson at the very least to make it 25, and then obviously they've lost players since. That's interesting to know. Lewis Hall doesn't.
Yes,
He's
and
young.
neither does Lewis Miley.
Obviously, yeah. No, interesting to know. So
that's something Eddie Howe will have to consider when it comes to obviously naming his squad, but potentially loaning out players. And I think that's why Joe White, there's just not a place for him in the squad. I think he probably needs to get loaned out, potentially at a higher level than he ever has been before. He's been at League One, he's been at League Two. Do you try upper end League One or even lower end Championship? I'd do that, see how he does, and then you see. But I think you're right. Does he come back? I've liked what I've seen of Joe White. He's helped, and I think there would have definitely been a place for him if Newcastle were like in the Conference League playing a lot of games. But I think given the options Newcastle have in midfield, if everyone stays fit, which has been a problem, particularly last season, I just can't see a situation where Joe White gets regular minutes for Newcastle United.
I mentioned before about Lewis Miley potentially knocking out knocking out Sean Longstaff for the team. The same's got to be said for Elliot Anderson as well. It's I said it last summer, and this feels even more like a big summer, a big season for Elliot Anderson. We need to see an injury-free Elliot Anderson. Yeah. Because I think the lad has got talent to make a big impact in this team, but we've just not seen it. We've seen hard work. We've seen a grafter. We've seen
you had him as the Joe Linton
light in many ways because he's got that physical element.
Eddie Howe didn't agree with that, by the way.
No, he didn't. I teed Jordan up, didn't I? I said, "Go on, ask him about that."
He was just like,
and he was like, "Nah." So I think Elliot Anderson is a very valuable member, and I think you'll see a lot of minutes this year, but he needs to stay injury free. We need to see Elliot Anderson free that injury, and he'll know that himself. Hopefully his body doesn't let him down this year. I think that's everybody apart from Tonali who stays, even silly rumours recently that stays.
Keep all of them except maybe Joe White?
Don't know about Joe White. I'm not 100% convinced he isn't going to be a Newcastle United level player. I think he's got something. I do.
Okay.
But it's a tough one.
Right.
I'm going to stay on the fence with Joe White.
I'm going to loan him out. That's my decision. And I'm going to sell your mate, Sean Longstaff.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yes. Because, like, we touched on the academy before. Academy in PSR is a gold mine.
Yeah,
it's pure profit.
It is.
If you can get any sort of fee for Sean Longstaff, who, look, he doesn't have that. I don't think Sean Longstaff is going to get any better.
Ceiling, I
think he performed beyond all expectations at the start of last season and then the season before when Newcastle got in the Champions League. But the past 6 months or so has fallen. Shown glimpses now and again and has a good eye for goal as well. But I think Sean Longstaff, 26 years old, for newly promoted Premier League side, he does stay fit quite often as well, so he will play games for you. If a newly promoted Premier League side come in with 10-15 million for him,
you take it as pure PSR profit.
Pure profit.
There's an interesting one. So I'm gonna pitch you something.
Okay.
As you did me with Sven Botman.
Okay.
What happens if somebody comes in with a 20 to 25 million for Lewis Miley?
It would have to be a little bit more.
Would it?
Yeah. I wouldn't. Lewis Miley is a one. I would have maybe posed that question to you if you hadn't said, because I think 2025 is still too.
That's why I'm pitching it, because
it's too low.
Because you don't know what his ceiling is yet. So.
It's too low. I think if someone comes in with maybe 35,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of money for an 18-year-old unproven.
Yeah.
I say unproven. He's proved his worth in the Premier League and Champions League, but there's still a lot of question marks.
He's not established yet as a Premier League player, is he?
Yeah. So someone came in. It's the sort of argument of a player we'll get onto in a minute, I'm sure. Yankuba Minte, where it's like, but you just go, right, we can cash in on this player and make a sizable profit. I wouldn't want to do that. I think it's one of the negatives of the PSR model and rules. I'd give Lewis Miley as much a chance as he can to progress at Newcastle United. But if a big club, say, were to come in with £35 million, people won't like this, but you would maybe consider it, because he's not a guaranteed starter. You don't quite know where his ceiling is. You see players burst onto the scene and play with such a freedom and almost like that academy sort of swagger at times. We saw it with Elliot Anderson in glimpses, Lewis Miley definitely, but that can almost get trained out of you sometimes, and players can drop and plateau. So we'll see with Lewis Miley. I'm really excited for the future with him. But
what do you think he is? What do you think he'll turn into? Because he's obviously for the youth teams he played a bit further forward.
I actually thought his best performance of the season was Nottingham Forest, where he played like the number 6.
Yeah, he did, and I think because of his size, because of the time that he has on the ball, because of the passing that he's got and what he sees in front of him, I think that would probably be where he might be sort of shoehorned into as he
Needs to
gets...
be moulded into it.
Yeah, moulded into it and learn the position a little bit more. I mean, he can learn off Bruno Guimaraes. There's not really many better midfielders in the world at the moment, so it's a perfect breeding ground for Geordie midfielders coming through the academy, that you've got one of the best midfielders on the planet to just soak up like a sponge anything that he does and the qualities that he has and all that kind of stuff. Although, just keep away from the Kinder Buenos, I would say.
Yeah.
And the 25 weddings is over it.
I know, yeah. Joe
Linton's done that this year.
isn't he? Slow start to pre-season.
But Tonali, I think we're probably just going to... I don't really think we need to talk about him, do we? No. He comes back 2 games in. That's why I'm saying that midfield on the first day, Tonali's probably going to have to knock one of the Geordie lads out of that midfield, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
It'll either be Miley, Longstaff, or Anderson to a lesser extent, because it's probably not his natural position, but it's going to have to be one of those, you'd say, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Who do you think starts the season in midfield?
Bruno, Joe Linton, Longstaff. That's what I would expect from Eddie Howe.
It works, doesn't it? Like, it's a functional midfield that has worked. And even he went back to last season when Tonali was having his, bed name struggles.
Yeah.
At the start of the season, so
yeah, midfield, I think we're mostly in agreement. I think Joe White should be loaned out, and I'd sell Sean Longstaff, which is probably the one disagreement we'll have. And then the rest you'd keep.
Yeah, I think I would.
And then I'll have the slight caveat on Lewis Miley as well.
I didn't say Joe Willock, man.
Oh yeah, Joe Willock's an interesting one, but would you keep him?
He could start in the midfield.
Yeah.
I would. So my opinion on Joe Willock, I always think, and I've never been 1,000,000% sold on Joe Willock as a player. I think he flits in and out of games. I think he has a big impact when he's good. He's really good, but can become a bit non-existent at times as well. A really good athlete, great at progressing the ball forward. I think Joe Willock's a good 20-minute man. I think he's a good impact man off the bench when you need something, or legs get tired and gaps open up. He hoovers those gaps up. So I think he's a good player to have in and around a squad. But I think if anybody came in with any money, I wouldn't be standing his way. It's my thought on Joe Willock.
Injury issues, isn't it? It's perhaps a Callum Wilson type argument where he's a good squad player, probably get in most Premier League squads, not starting 11s, but squads. He's still got room to improve potentially, but you paid a lot of money for Joe Willock. I think
you'll not make that money back.
You do well to. I think on the back of the season he's just had.
Yeah.
I think he needs another season trying to play football before you even consider selling him, because you paid a lot of money, and I think he'll have a point to prove next season, hopefully. But yeah, on the wing, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, Miguel Almiron, Garang Kuol, Ryan Fraser, Yankuba Minty. I reckon you could get rid of quite a few of them. But I'll let you kick it off.
Ryan Fraser in the bin. Garang Kuol back on loan somewhere. Still a young lad, to be fair. I think there's a lot of people saying, his next one has to be the... Look, this was a lad who signed 2 years ago who hadn't kicked a ball.
Eddie Howe said that, though.
He literally couldn't kick a ball, though. Like, he hadn't played any senior football when he signed for Newcastle United. It's no surprise he's had a couple of struggles in some
reasons. He played a little bit in the A-League.
Yeah,
he played in the
much.
World Cup.
He'd never started a game, though.
No.
That was the thing, like... We're not talking about a 17-year-old here who'd been playing loads and loads of stuff and then signed it. He hadn't really played much football. So I think he's one that... I'm not going to write him off yet, but I'm not going to write him in either. I think you just send him back on loan. Give the lad some confidence again. Get him enjoying his football and playing some decent stuff and scoring some goals. Of the rest of them...
Gordon's one of probably your irreplaceables, would you say?
He's in the group, aye. He's one of the blue chip, as Bobby Robson would say. He's the blue chip brigade. Harvey Barnes, I think I've probably mentioned it on here.
Jury's out.
You keep, because injury hit season, his numbers reflect really well. I actually think I'm always really loath to talk too much about statistics. Tell the story, and they're factual, and they do tell you, but they only tell you so much of a story. And I think a footballer for me, and I'm not saying I'm any kind of expert, I just watch football like you guys, but they've got to pass the eye test for me. And Harvey Barnes to me is yet to pass an eye test. I've never looked at him in that Newcastle United team and thought, wow, you're absolutely at home. Like, you've got a perfect purpose. Even when there was a couple of flitting games where the front three was unleashed and it was Barnes, Gordon and Isak, Barnes was still to an extent the weak link. He still wasn't the absolute.
Yeah.
He's a good finisher. And again, I wonder if as squad building goes and the club progresses, and hopefully this is a big progressive somehow with a couple of starters coming in, that I think Harvey Barnes probably falls into that Joe Willock 20-minute impact man, that he will score you goals or make an impact off the bench, and a lot of clubs have them and you need them, but can also play. So I think you keep him, but I'm not going to say I'm absolutely sold on Harvey Barnes.
Right.
But again, injuries. Jacob Murphy is a keep for me. I think he ticks a lot of boxes. He becomes almost the man in a crisis if you need. He's not someone you want to have to rely upon to start week in, week out.
Yeah.
But if you need someone to play on the left, or you need someone to play on the right, an emergency play at right back, if you need someone to play up front, an emergency, Jacob Murphy's kind of your forward fill-in man, and that's why I think he has a good value in the squad, even though he's not necessarily a starter in any of his positions. Yeah. Hopefully when they sign somebody to play on the right-hand side. And beyond that, Miguel Almiron, again, it's another one where I think the time is up. Being a good player for the money that he cost Newcastle United, the games that he's played, the impact that he's had, and you've mentioned it on the last video. If you look back in 20 years' time on a highlight reel of Miguel Almiron, I think you'll probably you'll be looked back upon and think, wow, what a player he was. Yeah. But again, it's the eye test, and I think he's lacked football intelligence. I think he lacks that just game awareness at times. I think he has to be walked through. We see it right in front of us where we sit at St James's, that when Kieran Trippier has played with him over the last few years, he literally walks and talks him through the whole game. You're there, go there now, and he's telling him where to be all the time, and that's when it works. When Trippier's not there, it hasn't worked for Almiron, and it doesn't. So I think the time's up. He's been a good player, a good servant, some big moments, some good goals, a couple of purple patches. But I think if you want to progress as a team, it's the major point in this whole start 11 where you say that's prime for upgrade, and I thought that last summer as well. Should we address Minte separately together? You want to go through your little list there?
Yeah, but
are you going to disagree on anything?
I don't think I disagree with you on anything there. On Minte, we talked about him last Friday, and my opinion hasn't changed, where I think you might have to sell him.
So there's a lot of people came in the comments, some people quite passionate about this actually, the Minte thing, and it was like, why would you do this? It's not Ashley economics anymore. You don't have to sell good, promising players. Now, I also agree with that, and I think in an ideal PSR-less world, then he stays at this football club.
Yeah.
Funny enough, in a PSR-less world, he might not have even been signed in the first place, being brutally honest.
Yeah.
I think they might have just signed a starting player and that be the end of it. Raw, still a lot of work to do. And I think Howe will probably have a little look at him unless somebody's put a concrete offer in behind the scenes, which there seems some keen interest in him. I'm not really sold on the idea of him. If they got rid of him, I think it's part of the process. I think that with a lot of players at the moment, it's a commodities business, and as rubbish as that sounds, that these footballers are commodities, they're saleable assets. It isn't just football anymore. It isn't about accumulating the best football players. It's about making shrewd investments that you think might make money for you. Yeah. And if they, in a year they've managed to turn a £7 million player who never played in any of the top 5 leagues into a £30 or £40 million player, then without even having to do any
incredible
work,
business.
It is incredible business. It's not football as we know it, but football as we know it has not existed for some time. And the quicker we all realise that, the better.
Yeah, I think the football purists and a lot of Newcastle fans will be excited to see Yankuba Minte as we are.
Sweating.
Yeah.
It's a sun trap, this dog.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the rain, so it's about time. But I think Yankuba Minte, based on what we've heard, Newcastle do need to sell players. They don't need to sell necessarily a Bruno or an Isak, but if they can raise considerable money for a player who hasn't even made his debut, it's just a no-brainer for me, as we said last week. So, yeah, that's the winger situation. There's now only 3 players left. Really, 2 really.
Aye, 2. So I mean, we'll mention the other one because he's got to go out on loan, hasn't he?
Yeah, forwards. There's only 3: Alexander Isak, Callum Wilson, and of course Ben Parkinson, who plays out wide quite often as well as up front. 19 years old, played a couple of games last season.
Yeah.
Played 1 game last season anyway. So, yeah, Ben Parkinson, you loan him out, you see what's what. Or because Newcastle have so few options, do you keep him involved?
I think I think for me it's one of the problematic areas. Again, another problematic area in the team. I think they've gone from when they had 3 forwards, they were able to rotate, and that was even without Europe, and it worked with Chris Wood. They've never really replaced him, and that's.
It was such a luxury, Chris Wood. The Chris Wood era was brilliant. Era.
Anybody who watches these videos regularly know I'm not a fan of Chris Wood in any way, shape or form, but it's the extra body.
Just check the Newcastle World Player Ratings for Burnley away.
The last game of Eddie Howe's first season. Yeah, I think I was driving home that day, wasn't I, from Turf Moor, and I was Jordan working for Newcastle World, of course, had said, Liam, you do the ratings, and I hadn't had a chance to do them, so I was like speaking them out when we're driving the car, weren't we? What do you think of him? What do you think of him? And the Chris Wood one, to be fair, never actually seen the light of day.
No.
I think Jordan definitely softened that one from that day. But anyway, I mean, he scored a lovely hat-trick at St James's Park. It's the best he'd ever played there.
Shut us up.
Shut me up. And that's the way we like to say it. Not against Newcastle, of course. Callum Wilson, Alexander Isak, Ben Parkinson is dead easy for me, this. In a PSR-less world, Callum Wilson stays. In a PSR world, I think you've got to look to move him on. And that flies in the face of what I think of him as a footballer, because I really like him. One of my favourite players in recent years by some distance, because the number 9 shirt, and he scores goals, and he's strong and burly, and I just like everything about him. He represents everything he represents, hard working. But his injuries, they need players who can play, and if he's not going to play, then we need somebody else. That's just the plain and simple of it. But ideally, if the plan, which I don't think it is, was to sign a third, I would keep Wilson, and if he's happy being a second or third, then I'm sure he'd score goals. If he's only needing to play 15 games a season, I've got no doubt he'll score 10 goals in those 15 games if that's all he has to play. But is he going to be happy with that at this stage in his career? The character that he is, I would suggest probably not. So it could be one where they look to replace. Alexander Isak, I'm not even going to talk about him, because he's the man. And anybody who comes in is going to have to take the crown off the king in that area, and I think it's going to be really tough. And Ben Parkinson's got to go somewhere. There's no point in him sitting around making half the benches and not the others. I think he should go out, but I think they do need to sign something in that department, with or without Wilson going.
I think it needs addressed, because last season it got exposed really by the fact Ben Parkinson, with all due respect, got minutes in the Premier League. I think you can't rely on Callum Wilson, but I don't think you can get better.
On Saturday, we sat at PSG and Alexander Isak couldn't move. And we were all saying, like, surely you just bring somebody on. Ben Parkinson was on the bench that day and he never brought him on. So what's the point in having these players around if you're not going to trust them to do the job? There is 0 point. And if Howe's in that position, I hope he's learned these lessons, that he can't be in that situation again, where he's having to flog the same players over and over and over. Injuries happen, they always happen. They had more than most last season, but injuries will happen again. Just because the new season starts in August does not mean that injuries won't happen. This is not a clean slate. Injuries will continue. You don't suddenly wipe history and start again just because it's a new season. They're going to have to make sure that they deal with this better, whether that's through training, whether that's through managing, whether that's through diagnosis, or whether that's through signing players.
She agrees.
She does. She likes that one. She didn't like the point before, but she likes that one. Whether that's through signing players to replace players that you don't trust to come off the bench, they're going to have to address it. And that's with or without Callum Wilson leaving the football club.
It's a heart over head thing for me. Like Isak, like you say, you keep him. He's your blue chip. I said the other day, I was a few pints in, I was arguing he's one of the best strikers in the world with some of my friends. But
I think you're right.
I think there's enough sober argument to be had.
It is.
But I think Callum Wilson, my heart says keep him, my head says you probably have to move him on, just for a more reliable, maybe lower quality player. But a one who will play more games. But I will say, quality wise, I think you'd do well to even find a player equal to the level of quality of Callum Wilson.
Yeah, you would.
With the money Newcastle would have available to spend on a striker. So that's where the heart over head thing comes in. I think as things stand, I don't know about you, I've heard nothing really that concrete about Newcastle signing a striker.
No.
So based on that information, I keep Callum Wilson.
That's why I keep saying it.
I know Dominic Calvert-Lewin
I am.
I would personally keep Callum Wilson over him. So that's where I stand.
So I mean, I'll be honest with that. Calvert-Lewin wouldn't be the one I would definitely choose. But were it a choice purely between the two on ability, I think if both are fit, I think Callum Wilson scores more goals and is a better goal scoring centre forward. I actually think Calvert-Lewin is possibly a better player. And I think he's a little bit more of a handful than what Callum Wilson is at his best. But again, it's a fitness issue. He played a lot of games last season, which surprised me when I looked into it.
Yeah,
he played a lot more games and was available for a lot more games than Callum Wilson was. Bearing in mind Newcastle played more games, Calvert-Lewin was available and played a lot more. So
you'd probably get more out of Calvert-Lewin in the fact that he's also a few years younger as well. So if you were to have him, I suppose there's that argument. And I think Callum Wilson, with a year left on his contract, you'd probably look to maybe cash in.
He's only going to get another year. If he stays, it's never going to be any more than that. It's going to be a rolling contract, basically, with Callum Wilson. Very much the same situation. I don't even think we mentioned Fabian Schär. We didn't even have to mention him, did we? Because he just is. He without having the name and the reputation, he's another blue chipper for me. He's so integral to the way that Newcastle United play. That passing from the back, which Sven Botman at his best can be as well. Yeah. It just gives Newcastle United such a dynamic from the back that there aren't many teams have got, bar Manchester City and probably a couple of others.
Yeah. So
that's a lot, I think.
That wraps it up. Do you want to have a quick overview? Who
the big ones, the takeaways, the big takeaways?
So goalkeeper
Dubravka.
Yes.
Gone.
We'll both agree on that. You keep the other two.
Kieran Trippier. Both said.
I'd keep him.
Stay. Experience wins over anything. I think you see that with the England squad now. He's not part of the England leadership group, but he's such a good player to have around. Southgate trusts him. He speaks to all the young players. He's good at integrating people in. Yes, he's maybe not the Trippier that was signed 2 years ago, but he's still the man.
So yeah.
Any others in that department that we said?
Full backs: Jamal Lewis, Matt Targett, Emil Kraft.
Emil Kraft was for me.
Get rid of them all.
Yeah.
Harrison Ashby. I'd get rid of him as well.
Sell. Yes. Time. I don't think he looks up to it.
Alex Murphy, loan him out. Keep the rest defensively. Midfield.
Joe Willock was
I'd keep Joe Willock.
You keep him.
I'd sell Sean Longstaff.
Yeah, you said sell. I would keep Sean
Longstaff. Would sell Ryan Fraser. I'd sell Yankuba Minte.
I'm not sure.
And I'd loan Joe White.
Yeah, and I would look to keep Joe White around, but it depends on the game time, doesn't it? And the fact that he now ticks a place in the squad, so it's a tough one for him. And the last one would be Callum Wilson, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, loan Grant Qual, sell Miguel Almiron, and
sell Miguel.
And
Wilson, I want to say I want to keep Wilson, but I think if you got rid of him, I wouldn't. It's as good as he's been, and as a bigger fan I am. If I knew someone was going to come in and guarantee 30 games in a season, then it'd be hard not to swap him.
Would you take Chris Wood back though?
No. On that note,
it's easy. He scored more goals, played more games. He's your man.
Couldn't lace Callum Wilson's boots, could he?
No. Yeah, he could last season.
Yeah.
He didn't use them much last season though.
Callum Wilson had his boots in the bag, didn't he? He never got them out.
So yeah, that's a long one. We're approaching maybe one of the.
I'm not sure how many people will stay for the full 49.
We'll be skipping through. Hopefully,
but we've ticked the box. Everyone wanted.
We promised something, and we've somewhat delivered.
So
yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us as a ominous cloud comes over.
Do let me know. Do jump in the comments and let me know what you guys think. Do you want keep, sell, loan? Let me know.
Yeah. Maybe put a few polls on. Tease it. See what you think, and let us know. You probably disagree with some of what we've had to say, and you might agree with some of it as well. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Of course, our sponsors, thanks to them, for Rivers Financial Planning in one of the corners. I'll decide that when it comes to editing. And yeah, do you want to wrap up, Liam?
That's the one. Like, comment, share, subscribe for all your Geordie Journos content.